But it was when I hit my rock bottom when I was 18 and I went when my panic attacks started from drug-induced psychosis.
Right.
Then I absolutely could not be in a group of people without a drink inside me. Like, no way. Oh, I need to have a drink before.
Yeah.
Like a drink before I go to the pub, a drink before I go to that thing. And I also, and this is so absurd, I also thought I was the only person who did that. I dreamt that you were twisted through 7. Welcome everybody to the Soberful podcast. I'm Veronica.
And I am Chip.
So this is our last episode before we go on our summer break. So we take 2 months off over the summer. And we'll be back in September. And we have, I don't know, I think we have like 200 and where are we at with episodes? We have 231.
31.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to all of them, it's your opportunity to catch up over the summer.
Yeah. And as I said last time when you said something about the numbers we did, I thought we were going to do about 6. And that would be a fun little experiment. And yeah. It's great. Yeah. I love it.
5 years. I know. We were both in different decades when we started this. I was in my 40s, you're in your 60s.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going till we drop dead, basically, at the microphone.
I was in my 60s. No, I was in my 70s. I'm 75.
No, because I remember. No, you were 69. Because I remember you talking about your 70th birthday. You were just about to turn 70, but we were in different decades. Yeah.
Okay.
We have like, I don't know. I think we're at like getting up to close to 1.5 million downloads across like so many countries that I can't even tell you. So yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah, this is a stupid thing to say on a podcast, but you've got new glasses, I see.
Well, I'm just the reading glasses. Yeah, I have different reading glasses.
Nevertheless, they are very stylish. Yeah. For those of you who wish to know, it's she's wearing very stylish glasses.
I have to have about half a dozen pairs of reading glasses scattered around the house.
Yeah,
just so I can grab them.
Yeah,
I've never needed glasses. I just need them now. And not only do I need them for reading, I need them for the screen. And that's something that wasn't the case when we started this podcast. I can tell you that's a new thing.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking today about social anxiety and alcohol use. Before we go into that, I want to just say a couple of things. I have a workshop coming up in a couple of weeks with Kate Bailey from Love Sober. It's called Hot Sobriety. And it is for women in the perimenopause or the menopause. We thought that was hilarious, Hot Sobriety.
Yeah.
And it's again, that's another big struggle I see with a lot of my clients is getting sober or dealing with an alcohol problem when you are also going through some quite dramatic hormonal changes. So Kate is certified by, I think it's the Menopause Society. So she's going to talk a lot about actually what's happening in our bodies and, things that we can do. And I'll be going to be talking about, ways that we can manage our sobriety. So there's a 3-hour workshop.
I was going to say, this is a workshop, yeah.
On July 10th, and it is recorded. And if you go to soberful.com, you can sign up to that. It's $97. And it's on my social media and all that kind of stuff. And the last thing is the Soberful store is open. And if you want to get T-shirts or actually, I want to tell you the water bottles are really nice. I don't have one to hand. The water bottles are great. There's a mug, there's T-shirts, there's a bag, there's a hat. So if you would like to support the podcast, we keep this commercial free. Purchasing an item from the store would be great. Go and check that out. That's on soberful.com as well. So social anxiety and alcohol. It was social anxiety that changed my drinking for sure. And I just hear this from so many clients. Do you about using alcohol to manage social drinking, social events?
Yeah, completely. And it's one of the things that puts a lot of people's sobriety at risk is big social events, parties, weddings, Christmases, big festivities. Those are the things that really give people a lot of red flags. And even though they're in sobriety and, it's going to be fine, they suddenly think, oh, my God, how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to deal with this? I also think it was the reason I started drinking in the first place, because I was shy and I was awkward. And lo and behold, I found that, I got a lot of fun when I drank at the beginning, but it worked at a
Mm-hmm.
social level just like a dream. Suddenly I wasn't as shy as I thought I was. I was able to be talkative and funny, and it was all really beneficial. And I thought, well, this is just, I thought I'd find the sort of golden key to social anxiety. A few drinks, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I am absolutely flying. And I guess that was true for a while. And I then obviously it got out of hand. And then I think it came as a bit of a surprise when I got into recovery that all that came back again. And I kind of thought, well, I'm going to give up
Mm.
drinking. This is going to be so healthy. This is going to be so great for me. But I found that I was very shy again. And I felt, if anything, even more shy and awkward because I was now much, much older amongst people who were quite confident socially. And I'd sort of lost a whole period of time when I should have been developing social skills. And for me, I was crippled with social anxiety. It really,
Mm.
it was, walking into a room was just awful. And I think it's something that I'm really glad we're talking about it, because I think it's one of the biggest reasons that people struggle with giving up drinking, because lots of
I do.
people,
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
everybody can give up for a week or so, and
Yeah.
not have those moments. But I think it's that realization. Oh my God, life and meeting people is really quite a difficult thing. Hadn't
Mm-hmm.
expected that. Oh, okay, I think I might need a drink. And I'm not, and we talked just now about the really big occasions, but I just think people are much more socially anxious than they think they're going to be, and it's it's a shock, and
Mm.
it's something that really, I hope that if nothing else, as a result of this podcast, people realize practically everybody I know, and as you said, all the clients I know and work with, worry about how am I going to do anything? How am I going to have fun? How am I going to go out and do sometimes the most simple social tasks, like going bowling or something where there's an alternative activity? People still suffer from a degree of anxiety that can make them feel separate from, less than, and make life very difficult. And obviously, we all want to give up drinking because we want our life to be better. We want it to be fun and we want
Mm.
it to be enjoyable. And suddenly we find that there's a whole section of life that is quite hard work because I've made this decision to give up drink.
Yeah. So social anxiety, I've never had a client who's not had some anxiety of some kind. And social anxiety is so common.
Yeah.
And we think we're the only ones. That's the other thing. We think everyone else is fine and we think that we're only ones. But it is. I agree. I started drinking at like 13, 14, and it was that adolescent binge drinking. But really, I think underneath it was, you have so much anxiety when you're an awkward teenager about
Yeah.
fitting in and flirting with boys and all that kind of stuff. So that's social anxiety, and alcohol took all of that away.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been an extrovert and I've always loved being around people. And I think I had some anxiety about that, but I think it was okay. And I was a binge drinker, but it was when I hit my rock bottom when I was 18 and I went when my panic attacks started from drug-induced psychosis.
Right.
Then I absolutely could not be in a group of people without a drink inside me, like no way. And that's when and I remember making the conscious decision, like, oh, I need to have a drink before.
Yeah.
Like a drink before I go to the pub, a drink before I go to that thing. And I also, and this is so absurd, I also thought I was the only person who did that.
Yeah.
And when I got sober, I was really like, oh, I'm not the only. I absolutely thought I was the only person who was having a drink. I think that's one of the first indications. If you feel, and it was a need. It was like, I need to have a drink. Just one glass and a half of wine is just enough to relax me enough to get, into the situation. And then, and I just realized so many people do that.
Yeah.
It's very, very common. But then the other thing that I see, and this is one of the battles I had, is when I realized I had to stop drinking and that my anxiety was being really exacerbated by the drinking, that my big fear was, how will I cope without it?
Mm-hmm.
Like how, like I can get through some days and things, but I can't do a social situation. It is so terrifying for me to walk into a dinner party or anything where there was a group of people. Just meeting people for coffee was so anxiety provoking. Yeah. I feel like I see people do that dance, is they really want to stop. They don't like it. They can see all the bad, but they just they don't know how they're going to deal with social things.
Sure.
And again, just casual things.
Yeah, no.
And that keeps them in the stop starting.
Yeah, just, I mean, what you said there about what they used to call in England prinking, which was pre-drinking. Used to call
pre-drinking,
it prinking, yeah. I would not contemplate going to have a date or a coffee or whatever without getting drunk first, or not drunk, but without having a bit of something inside me to give me that little boost. I mean, it would be like, okay, we're going on a date or we're going on this. Okay, first of all, let's get the alcohol in, and then we'll talk about where we're going to go and what we're going to do. But with that would be the first thing I would think of. Okay, right. Then I might think about, well, where we're going to go. We're going to go to the movies. We're going to do this. But the first thing I'd think of is getting myself socially lubricated enough to be able to carry this task out, whether it's a date or a party or whatever it is. I need to get that alcohol inside me first before I even contemplate doing it. And that became the norm, and that became perfectly acceptable. I mean, obviously it would got out of hand and everything. And it didn't occur to me when I gave up drinking that this was going to be a problem. I sort of had some sort of abstract concept that, having fun might be a bit problematic. Maybe for me, certainly getting a job is going to be a bit problematic. I don't know, how many jobs there are for criminals going at the moment. I don't see many advertised, that sort of thing. I thought those sort of things, where am I going to live? Those sort of things. I didn't think talking to people was going to be a problem. And it was the biggest problem, without any doubt at all. I discovered quite quickly that I could work quite hard. And I sort of, having been a lazy bastard all my life, I suddenly discovered I could actually work hard, and I could do things. But my God, it just poleaxed me, the difficulty I had talking to people, engaging, always feeling slightly on the outside. Something a bit what you said earlier on. I always felt everybody else had their stuff together, and I didn't.
Yes.
And I was always just sort of, it felt like I was loitering on the edge of a group, and there'd be a group of people who, of course, I thought were just a clique of people excluding me, but actually they were just friends talking, and it would be like trying to, it was crippling. And I have this one incident, which I think I've talked about before, but it could easily have been years ago because we've been doing this so long now. But I remember coming out of a self-help group, and there were a group of people ahead of me who I liked, people there, and there was a group of people behind me, about 20 yards in the other direction, and I was in the middle. And I thought, do I rush to catch up with the group ahead, or do I wait for the other ones? But the idea of kind of, it was so difficult to join a group of people, and, it actually makes me sweat now, even just sort of thinking about how difficult it was to do even the most simple task. Actually, my social anxiety was so bad that even going into a shop and asking for something was a task. It's like, oh God, I've got to engage with the shopkeeper, and it was horrible. And I think, as you said, it comes as a big surprise to people that they think because, you know, most people who come to help have got at least 10 years, maybe not always, but that's a bit of a generalization, but 10 years plus of drinking. And during all that time, they've not had any social problems at all. They've had no anxiety at all. They've not been upset about things because they've always been intoxicated. So they didn't. And suddenly, this person who they thought was very confident and very self-assured is a social wreck and can't do things. And I think it comes as I think a lot of people are put off recovery as a result of that, or sobriety, whatever we want to call it. I think a lot of people are put off that because they suddenly think, oh my God, this is going to be more difficult. And, you know, and a lot of the ways in which people get help through, you know, social anxiety doesn't have to be about groups of people, although, you know, there are support groups, which are groups of people. Social anxiety doesn't have to be a group of people. It could just be one other person. You know, going to see a therapist could have raised my social anxiety through the roof. Just having a one-on-one conversation with somebody at the cinema, you know, am I sitting properly in the cinema, for God's sake? You know, it's like,
there's a degree of self-obsession, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah,
as well. It's
is.
very like, it's all about me. How am I in the world? Are people looking at the way I'm standing? You know, oh God, you know.
But
self-obsession feeds the social anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it did. I don't want to get too, but it definitely came as a huge surprise to me that it was so difficult. And of course, you know, being the sort of person I was, I thought, yes, this is difficult. I will never be able to overcome this because, you know, everything was about, I'm not going to be able to stop using drugs. I'm not going to be able to stop drinking. I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And without doubt, and in a way, I think one of the things that took longest to get sorted out was my social anxiety and my ability to interact with people socially. I think, and if I'm honest, I'm not sure I've cracked it completely yet, actually. I think there is still a degree of discomfort I feel when I'm I mean, everybody has it as a human being, you know, when you're joining a new group or meeting a new group of people, everybody has a sense of, I want to belong, I want to be part of this. But I think it's still, I'm not as confident as people think. I mean, people have often said to me, oh, Chip, you're so confident in groups. I can't believe how you talk to people. And I think, little do you know what's going on inside my head, because there is an element of, there is a bit of shyness still there, a bit of, it's a mixture of shyness, wanting to be accepted, but I think it's been one of the biggest obstacles I've had to overcome. And I see it with a lot of clients as well. The biggest thing they've had to is not giving up drinking. That was a piece of cake, actually, when I eventually got to an establishment that was prepared. That was a breeze. That was the thing that I thought was
being in the world, isn't it? It's just being in the world without a substance.
Yeah, the thing I thought was going to be the most difficult, giving up the substance, that was absolutely a piece of cake. It was the other stuff that came with it, the emotions and stuff like that, and everything. But the interacting socially was easily the most off-putting, difficult thing about sobriety that I've had to deal with.
You know, and I mean, when we say social anxiety, we don't mean like just events that you socialize in. It's just events where there's other people.
Yeah.
Like I could do one-on-one. One-on-one was the one thing that I felt I'd never had any anxiety about. I had a job when I was like 18, 19, 20. It was in King's Lynn. I worked for the civil service, and it was in a big open plan office. So there's probably 50 people. It was a big floor, big open plan office. And that gave me just, oh my God, so much anxiety. Like just managing that. I was like a sort of constant, I was like a little rabbit. Like I'd sort of just be like, like all the time. And this is back in the very early 90s. And you could go and have a pint at lunchtime. And I kind of
Okay, yeah,
knew
yeah.
like having a pint at lunchtime on a Monday was a bad thing. But by Thursday, Friday, I would go and have a pint. And I found a couple of people who did that as well. And that pint got me through the after. So the morning, kind of knowing I can go and have a pint at lunchtime kind of got me through. And then
Yeah.
you know, like Fridays, we would have more than one pint, and then we'd like show up in the office in the afternoon on Friday just to show our face but be a bit tipsy. So inappropriate when I look back. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I was always, you know, and then when I was a student, the same thing. You could like, and that's what you look for when you have I look for legitimate drinking. Like, oh, all the students are in the student union bar, like, and so I could have a pint and a half was enough to get me through the afternoon lectures. But if it was that's when, you know, this social anxiety changed my drinking, because I told myself I have to drink to cope. I have to go to the lecture, or I have to do the thing. So that's why I have to have a drink. And you know, and I was drinking vodka out of a bottle in the toilets at 8:30 in the morning at university, just so I could cope with going to the lecture. I didn't want to be drunk. Like, the purpose wasn't fun. The purpose wasn't to enjoy myself. The purpose, it wasn't even to really relax. The purpose was it got me through that event, and I didn't want to be drunk or tipsy. I just wanted to get through the event. That's what I wanted to do. And you're so right. You know, just that the self-obsession feeds it, and not, you know, I felt like a toddler in a grown-up body trying to figure out how to be in the world, like how to just, you know, and I, you know, my life is with my husband's work and stuff. Like, we go to cocktail parties and dinner parties and this and that, and they haven't been a problem for years and years and years. You know, I remember when I met my husband, which was back in 2006, he was doing his PhD in Cambridge, and I was, you know, we were going to stuff, and it was all kind of Cambridge grads and people who, and I went to really crappy university. And I had a moment of being like, okay, you know, like, these people are so educated and been to these really top schools and all that kind of stuff. And I got over it. I had a tiny bit of anxiety about it, but I got over it really quickly, because I soon realized that none of them had any emotional sense whatsoever.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel like it's a conundrum for people. And I think that this keeps people stuck in the stop starting of wanting to stop, but not being, and you have, it's about slowly edging forward. So when I stopped and I was going to AA meetings, the same thing would happen. That was so anxiety provoking, to walk into a room full of people. Where am I going to sit, and who am I going to sit next to? And what if someone saved that seat for someone else? And what if I fall over something? And it was just, and eventually, after a few weeks, I told someone, and they were very kind. And they said, you get up as many times as you need. If you need to get up and go to the toilet, you go and do that, and then just come back and sit down. And that kind of got me through. And then not drinking for a few weeks just reduces the anxiety. And then little things got me through. As you know, I'm a big fan of EFT. If I'd have known it back then, that's one of the things I teach my clients. But it's like little things. And that's why we love support meetings, right? Because support meetings are a different vibe. You don't have to pretend there, right? It was the kindness of other people in support meetings that helped me just get through a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's the one place. I mean, I think that there's quite a few things I've stopped. I even had to write notes because my brain can't retain this sort of thing.
I saw you. I was like, what is he?
Because, you know, I think
I'm at that point where I have to write notes, otherwise I forget.
I know. I think we both agree that trying to get sober and change the way you are emotionally and etc. on your own not only isn't a good idea, but doesn't really work. You need to be part of a group and a community. And the one thing that the 12 step, I'm a great supporter of it. And I don't care whatever it is, whatever kind of support group I don't really care what it is. But the one thing they have in common is I can go to a support group anywhere in the world, sit down next to somebody, and they'll say, "How are you?" And I can say, "Not feeling too good, actually, feeling a bit crap," or whatever. And it's such a great place to be able to practice social skills. And I think it's one of the underestimated benefits of support groups is that they give you a place where you can practice your social skills in safety, where you can say, oh my God, I messed that up. And people talk about, they'll find all sorts of reasons to diss 12-step machines or any kind of support group. But the one thing those support groups give you, it's a practice ground where I can try this, I can try that, I can do, and nobody's going to judge me, nobody's going to ostracize me. I can't go to work and start practicing my social skills. Well, I suppose I can do, but but I can be honest about, oh, sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
But what you're saying, there's more understanding in the support groups, right? There's nobody, like if you sort of stumble in the work environment, whereas if you do that at a meeting, there'll be like a hand on your shoulder or what,
Or you can just say, oh God, sorry, I got that wrong. Well, you don't cut, you can be so honest in a support group. You can't be at a meeting or at a,
you can be vulnerable. It's a safe place to be vulnerable.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of the underestimated benefits of going to support, whatever the support group, I don't care what it is, but so I think that is something that is one of the great benefits of finding support groups, whatever color or sort of belief system you have. I think it's a great benefit of doing it. It's giving you a practice ground. And the other thing that you were talking about was, I remember it wasn't about sort of getting intoxicated. It was about finding that perfect recipe that allowed me to feel fun and engaged and, at ease. And I can remember once I had gone out, I'd had 2 extremely strong beers, a couple of diazepam, and a bit of amphetamine, and I was perfect. It was so good. I got out a bit of paper and I wrote it down. 2 special brews, amphetamine, 2 Valium. And I thought, and I said to my friend, I was playing pool in a pub, I said to him, that is the recipe for how to get through life. And I genuinely believed it. And I thought, I found it. I found the recipe to quell social anxiety. Unfortunately, I then thought, well, this is so good, I better do it again. And so, of course, then it went all wrong. But I literally, I promise you, I wrote it down and I said to my friend, I said, I found it. I found how to feel absolutely fantastic. And I wrote down 2 strong beers, a couple of diazepam, and a bit of amphetamine, and it was great.
It's the perfect mix of uppers and downers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing was, I thought, is there a kind of scientific equation we could do that's that the time you start drinking is indicative of the strength of your problem? And I kind of think it's got some legs, but I don't think it's going to carry. I mean, obviously, if you're drinking first thing in the morning, you've got a problem. But also, I think even though you might only start drinking at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the process of thinking about that 5 o'clock started a lot earlier. You didn't get to 5 o'clock and go, oh, it's 5 o'clock. I could probably have a drink now if I wanted to. If you've got your starting time is 5 o'clock, you don't start thinking about it at 5 o'clock. You start thinking about it at 12 o'clock, and you are preoccupied. Mm-hmm. You're preoccupied with that time for the 5 hours leading up to the time when you can go, okay, we've got there now. So I don't buy it necessarily when people say to me, but I only drink in the evening. I go, you may only actually put the liquid in your mouth in the evening, but I bet you've been thinking about it for some time before that, because that's the time you think you're going to be able to turn off your social anxiety, turn off your thing, and start to kind of be relaxed or whatever it is that you want to do. So, I think, and also something I said just now, and thinking about it, I have chosen to try and join various groups. Not support groups, sort of groups of activities. I mean, as everybody knows, I'm a very keen photographer, And every now and then I'll go along to a course or something, and even though thank God we've got something in common to talk about, like photography, and you can talk cameras and you can talk photographers, but without that, I would really struggle. I would just, I need that thing to be able just to be, what do we talk about? But at least if you go to a course that's focused on something, well, then at least you can talk about that. But just a group of people going out, um, I think the truth of the matter is, I'm not very good with people. Actually, I kind of
see. I never would, Chip. I would never say that about you ever.
I know.
That has not been my experience.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously it's got a zillion times better than it ever was, but I think there's internally there's more worry. I think it is that fine line between self-obsession and anxiety. But
see, you're a great public speaker. Like, yes. I've seen you get up in front of hundreds of people and be funny, vulnerable, appropriate, like kind of really like. And is that like anxiety ridden for you?
I am able to say now without worrying that I think I am a good public speaker. Yes.
Yeah, you are.
But the 3 days leading up to that public performance or whatever, that public speech, are absolute hell. And my wife will say, she'll start a conversation with me and I'm just not. And she goes, oh yeah, you've got your speech head on. Okay, all right. And so she just knows there's no point in trying to engage with me because I'm just, my head is full of it. But yes, I mean, that actually is something that is, when I think about it, it gives a bit of a lie to what I've been saying, because, I have gone from being crippled with social anxiety with one person, as you said, to being able to speak in front of 600 people and keep them engaged. And and I'm very grateful for that. But I think it would be dishonest of me to say I feel relaxed in all social situations, because I don't. Sometimes that might be because I don't necessarily agree. I've decided quite quickly that these people are not going to be the sort of people I want to hang around with. But I think it would be dishonest to say, no, I don't have any social anxiety at all. Because I do think I do have a degree of it. But I mean, absolutely nothing compared to what it was like when I first started. And I think you've made a very valid point, is that I think it is one of the main reasons people don't persevere. They get short bursts of sobriety and then, well, why didn't it maintain itself? Well, because I was, and I think, I would think 99 times out of 100 it's because they find social interaction and their social anxiety
so excruciating.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so what happens is, the other pattern that I see is that people will stay sober, but because they find social interaction so hard, they just begin to withdraw and isolate. Yep. And just kind of try and get by with this minimum sort of, and now that we've sort of shifted to this world where so many people can work from home, I've had clients where they're just having barely any contact week by week with people. Yep. And then what happens is, this is what happens, it begins to grow. So before, like, going to the grocery store was fine, or going to the bank was fine, but then they've isolated so much that those things then begin to be a struggle, like just going to the grocery store, or just seeing the neighbor across the street. So it's something that you have to recognize. And I want to say there's lots of things you can do. There's lots of practices that we teach, and EFT is my big one to go to. I just did a retreat a couple of weeks ago in Arizona with my ladies. Oh, such a great group. So great. And it just, I know a couple of people were quite anxious before. And by the end of it, we got through. There was, people were real and people were vulnerable, and there was so much bonding that took place. Yeah. And it's like, you did that. like you did that. You had meals, you spoke. It's
Yeah.
like you did that and you'll be able to do it again. So it's beginning to sort of do things like, okay, I did that. I can do that. That wasn't awful. It wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't as awful. And I got through it and it was okay. And nobody ran screaming from the room.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of keep going. I feel like, I'll tell you one situation I still don't love. And this is probably a throwback from social anxiety is, if you have to go to like a meeting and then you have to sit in the chair that's furthest away from the door with like people around you and bags. I still have that, that like, if I have to leave, I'm going to have to disturb, the room so much and I'll fall over the bags and 6 people are going to have to get up and I'll cause such a ruckus that everybody will notice. Like I still don't love that. But I can, I think I don't feel like I've been socially anxious. My anxiety is like it's very minimal, occasionally a little thing that's kind of, I want to say appropriate. It's not like, it doesn't pop up on,
Sure.
out of the blue. So it's,
always
I think everyone has a tiny bit of anxiety because life is anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always sit on the end of the row.
Again, it's such a, it's such a cliche, isn't it? When you're like, when I first went to meetings or anything like that, like, where's the chair that's nearest to the door so I can leave as quickly as possible without anybody noticing.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think, we say, I don't care what people go. I have no bother with whatever support people go to. But if I'm learning how to drive I know a lot of people, they go to a support group of some kind, whatever kind it is, and they find it's difficult. And they go, oh, I don't know about that. The one way that I definitely overcame my anxiety quicker was by continuing to go to lots of meetings, going to a lot of meetings. And I think, if I'm learning how to drive a car, if I have one lesson every 6 months, it's going to take me a long time to learn how to drive a car. If I have a lesson every day, I'm going to learn quite quickly. And I think the same thing applies to support groups of whatever nature, is that if I go to them regularly, I'm going to overcome that difficulty much, much quicker. If I go to one, I went to a meeting. I went to a support group. When was that? Well, about 3 weeks ago. You're going to go to another one? Yeah, I might do. I think, it's going to take you ages to get over that social discomfort and then be able to really benefit and enjoy the support you're going to get from the people who go there. So I think going frequently, overcoming that fear, taking that risk, overcoming that fear, and going as much as, I don't, I used to go to a lot of support groups. I go to one a week now. But that's I definitely got over my anxiety by facing it head on. I guess. I suppose.
I agree. I think that's what helped me the most, actually, is that I really didn't want to drink and I didn't see any other way of that happening apart from going to these meetings. And, I did a lot of sitting at the back of the room by the door and eventually I told someone and, I was going to meetings pretty much every day. And I think it is that. I think it was that had the biggest effect. And over time, it just got easy and it just became my new normal. And then because I could do that, when I had a job and there was a meeting, I kind of, the meeting would come to the end and I'd be like, oh, that I got through that. I do remember actually I can clearly remember this, being at Focus 12 with Jackie. And when I was training and I I co-facilitated group therapy with her and I was very anxious. That was terrifying. Now, group therapy is probably my favorite thing to do, to facilitate and to be in it, like as a participant. I love group therapy. But I remember that was, but again, you told me how to do it, so I did it. And it got better, it's and being in the support meetings, I began to see that other people felt the same as me. Like, I feel that is an enormous help, is seeing other people actually they're anxious and they're talking about it, and you can tell, you can read their body language, and I'm like, oh God, I'm not the only one. And
I'm much more impressed with somebody stumbling over their words and hesitating than I am with somebody who is fluent and things. I'll listen much more to somebody who stumbles. And I think the one thing I wanted to say about that has now gone out of my mind. Yes, it was, we're suggesting that people go to support groups, but we run online support groups. And I know that the people who show up and show themselves, I mean, it's not, but there are people who don't open their
put the camera on
at all, which is fine, but to keep sooner or later you've got to put the camera on and show yourself. And the people who do that quickest and take that risk seem to be the ones that grow quickly, and because it's it's just a question of taking that risk and believing, and obviously because we're having this conversation, believing that you can really overcome social anxiety. Yes, of course, everybody has it in different circumstances forever, really, but that crippling social anxiety that you get in the first few months of sobriety are not what sobriety is going to be like. And then I always say that to people. I say, look, first 3 months are going to be quite tough, but do not think that is what sobriety is going to be like. It is difficult to begin with. As I said, just like driving a car is difficult to begin with. But you get to a point where it becomes easier and easier and easier because you expose yourself and take the risk more often. And I would really encourage people, if you're feeling socially anxious and you're avoiding support groups because of social anxiety, push through it if you can. I always say, rather sort of challengingly, they say, oh, well, I can't go into, there's people there I don't know. And I go, what, you never went into a pub where you didn't know anybody? And they go, well, yeah, I did that. You never went to score drugs from somebody? I would go to some bizarre back alley down some little place in the middle of nowhere, meet where I knew nobody, but if I knew there was going to be drugs and alcohol at the end of it, I'd be there. Don't worry about that. So I just sort of, I think it is part of early sobriety, but it's overcomable. And you can learn to manage it and get on top of it.
Yeah, I agree. So I want people who are listening to this, who recognize themselves, to know they're not alone, that it's really, really common, that pretty much universally, everybody who struggles with an alcohol problem has this. And actually a lot of the people around you who are drinking that you're looking at and think, oh, they're fine, why can't I drink like them? They're actually drinking because of the social anxiety too.
Absolutely.
That this is why we keep saying early sobriety is not how it is long term. I'm not going to say, it is a challenge, but it's an overcomable challenge. You need other people. You need people who understand it. You need experts. You need peers. If you keep edging forward, it will decrease and decrease and decrease.
Absolutely.
And it does get better. And there's no alternative. You can't live like this. You can't drinking. Just if you are using alcohol to manage this, it's not making it better. It's by degrees making it worse. And you can't. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It is so isolating and lonely, and the self-obsession, all the things that we've talked about. It's very, very lonely. Feeling like that, because you do feel like you're only one. So please know that there's just stopping drinking itself, even though it may not be in that second, is within 30, 60, 90 days. That's using alcohol to manage anxiety is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It just it's going to just make it worse. So any last thoughts, Chip?
No, just to really give the message, as you've kind of said, that it will get better the more you expose yourself to the situation where you feel anxious. The more you face it, the quicker it will go. And it will go. It will go to a point where people think you're doing all right. And, but it will go. And I think that's guaranteed, actually. How you feel at the beginning is not how you're going to feel a year later, you're going to feel completely and utterly
Yeah.
different and be amazed at how the things you're
Yeah.
doing socially. So keep
Yeah.
pushing away and risking.
Yeah. So we hope you have a lovely, sober, safe summer and enjoy yourselves. We will be back at the beginning of September with a new season and lots of great topics and guests and all that kind of stuff. We love suggestions. So if you have any suggestions of topics that you want us to talk about, please you can message us through the website or social media. We will aim to get to those. And you have a great summer, Chip. And I'll see you in
Thank you very
September.
much. I've got some lovely things planned. I've already been on my canal holiday with my son, and it was absolutely spectacularly lovely. And we're doing it again.
I saw the
next year.
photos. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're doing it again next year. Yeah, great.
I'm off to England for a couple of weeks, and then we're moving again.
Oh,
and I'll say more about that in September.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Take care.